Welcome back to this very special, spooktacular edition of the Blue Suede Lounge. And I must say, it is hauntingly good, if you ask me.
That's right. And you know what? We do a haunted show.
Yes, we do.
Every Sunday. Tell us about WRGG.
I just wrote that on my notes. We can't forget to talk about that.
Yeah.
If you listen to Blue Suede Connection regularly, you'll hear me say at the introduction of the show from the haunted halls of Wade Lynn Studios.
That's right.
And there is no lies or any untruth behind that because it is a very haunted old home where we broadcast the show at WRGG.
It sure is.
In Greencastle, Pennsylvania. It's an old home, and the studios of the station are on the top floor, the second floor, which has been renovated, from home into a radio station. And the morning show there at WRGG talks a lot about it. They've had haunted ghost groups come in and do investigations.
Yes.
Always finding something there. And usually it's the two people that stay there regularly. And it's a couple that lived there, I guess, in the 1800s.
Right. They claim that the man and wife
yes,
that used to own that home.
And they're very entertained by the radio station.
Yeah,
apparently.
they like the entertainment that comes from the radio station.
And I don't know if it was him or her, but one of them pinched one of the investigators when they were there at one time. Yeah. So I'll tell you guys a funny story about it because you know that TL and I said we enjoy this kind of thing. Now, I don't go out pursuing it so much and try to, I don't want to get into something I don't want to be involved with. Mm-hmm. But on occasions, we will look into things. So we had just finished doing one of our shows. It was just TL and I alone in the studio.
Right.
And you were doing the final editing on one of the shows. So I said, I'm going to walk back in the back room and just turn my phone on and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I just did exactly that. I turned my phone on and I just started talking.
Right.
And at the end of my sentence, I said, I'm not sure who you are, what you're, I don't understand your world. I said, but perhaps you could help me to understand it. And I understand this used to be your home.
Right.
And as plain as day, you can hear a voice whisper, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not a radio. It's not somebody outside. It's not TL. There was a voice that directly answered my question. It said, yes.
Yeah, that really creeped me out because I remember you came back into the studio and said, oh my gosh, I got it on tape.
Because I was so excited because I didn't hear it with my naked ear. I didn't hear it until I played it back and heard it. Yeah. And then I had to do a follow-up. I had to do a sequel. So I went into the back room like a week or two later because I was so excited about this. Mm-hmm. And I turned my phone on, my camera on once again, and I held it up. And I said, hello, friend. I said, it's me again. I'm back. I said, last time I was here, you spoke to me. I said, I would really be special if you could come in front of this little black thing in my hand and just walk in front of it. And if you're here, I'll be able to see you. Mm-hmm. Now, you could see on the phone, you can see if it's dust particles or whatever. Mm-hmm. But a perfectly round object, a.k.a. orb, floats across the room, does a little circle, and comes directly smack dab into the camera.
Right.
As plain as day, right after I said that.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of left and went away.
That was pretty creepy.
So,
yeah.
Now let's tap this off one more time. We have two more parts to this story. Okay. When I shared this story on our video we did before one of our shows, a medium from the UK who knows nothing about me, doesn't know my personal life, doesn't know anything whatsoever about me.
We don't know her. We've never met her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she kind of wrote to us, and she may actually hear this podcast and can tell us who she is. She said, your father's trying to communicate with you. Some of the stuff you're feeling and seeing is your dad. And I thought that was pretty cool because she didn't know my dad was passed. She didn't know how old I was. I could have been a 25-year-old kid who still lived at home. She didn't know that. But she told me that my dad tried to communicate with me. Now, a few weeks later, I'm up here in this office where we do this stuff here at the house.
Here at home, yeah.
You were in your other life doing something, and I was...
My other life.
Yeah. I was recording...
I'm not transgender or anything, folks. No. I'm just...
Well, I don't know how much you want to share your personal stuff there.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
But I was up here recording stuff for the show, and I kept feeling tapping on my arm all throughout the evening. And now, keep in mind, it's like 12 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. Very late. I got the music playing. I've got Audacity. I'm recording, doing what I'm doing. And it just kept tapping my arm. I thought, okay, and I try to always find a logical explanation for anything. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be one of those people that, everything's a ghost, everything's something weird.
Yeah.
But there was no logical explanation for it. So I took my camera out again. I just filmed my arm sleeve where this was happening. And you've seen it. Many of our friends have seen it. You can see 3 different times where the indentations push in on my arm.
On
where
your
you
shirt.
Can see
it does look like something's touching you.
Yeah, you can see it tapping me. So that's kind of the...
Well, and the medium did say, though, she did confirm the two married couples that were in the studio.
She knew about
as well.
them. And
she just threw in the dad thing. And then she also said that there was an American Indian outside the building there
protecting
at WRGG.
It or something,
protecting the grounds, which I thought was very interesting, too.
You know, and you and I have had so many ghostly encounters.
Yeah,
and my favorite one, and you guys, you're going to love this because it's actually one of the first times you and I had met. When TL and I first started communicating, we weren't us yet. We were good friends, and I talked to you on Facebook, and we're getting ready to do a book project together. And that required communication. But I'm an East Coast boy, and you're a West Coast girl. You're all the way out. And
is that a song?
Yeah, somebody should write one if it's not. But anyway, TL is way out on the West Coast, and I guess where were you at then? You were in Washington.
I was out there in Washington.
Yeah, and I was in Maryland, and I lived in a very haunted house, folks. Let me tell you, the things that me and the kitty cats experienced there, I mean, it's in a whole book itself. But it was a very active house. I was touched. Lots of things went on there, and I don't want to have to get into all of that, but just trust me, it was very haunted. And me being a sensitive fellow, well, we kind of experienced everything that happened. So TL and I began communicating, like I said, and we did it through Skype. Everybody knows what Skype is. When you're doing Skype, you see the person you're talking to. They're the whole screen. You're the small little screen at the bottom corner of the screen. So I'm talking to her, and we're doing our thing. And right before we did our Skype session, the room was real active that night. I remember it being really goofy. Orbs flying around, cats acting stupid. And so I knew it was there, but I didn't want TL to think she was getting involved with some crazy man in this project. So I didn't tell her. So that evening, it's now dark. We're chatting. We're winding down the conversation. And I just happened to look down at the bottom corner to see myself, to make sure I didn't have like a booger in my nose or something. I didn't want to be embarrassed. And about that time, I see this white thing float kind of behind my head. And I thought, oh, my God, there it is. And I looked up at the screen, and your eyes, once again, were like quarters. And you kind of sat up.
Yeah.
And then this thing, just like a feather or something, just kind of tapered.
Down behind you.
Yeah,
it floated down like a feather, and then it kind of dispersed into these little particles around your head. And it was weird.
And I remember
I'd never seen anything like it.
And I remember your reaction. Your first thing was like, okay, what did I just see?
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah.
And I just...
No, I don't know if you saw it from your perspective or if you were just laughing from my reaction.
I was laughing because we talked about validation earlier, and who was to become the most important person in my life actually saw what I had been feeling and experiencing for the last 3 years of my life. Nobody else. I mean, I had a roommate that lived there that did not ever see anything. And I'm like, we're in the room watching TV and a thing flies. Did you see that? No.
Yeah.
Tell me you didn't see that. No, I didn't see it.
I got to tell you that before you, I'd never seen anything.
Right.
I mean, I'd had the experiences that I spoke about at Graceland. That had happened to me. But I'd never had anything happen outside of that.
Yeah.
And, of course, I always thought, well, these little happenings is just because I'm writing about Elvis and I'm very in touch with his legacy. And
well, I think because of shows like Ghost Hunters and things like that enable me to realize things more so, make me aware that I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
That a lot of things that I've been experiencing since a kid. I was a child. Stuff would happen. I'd see things, hear things. And I became open enough to recognize it. Now, when I lived in this house on Summit, I'll tell you, on Summit Avenue in Hagerstown, Maryland, I'll share this with you guys real quick. I shared this with TL many times. Myself was there, and my roommate at the time. And I just got done talking to you on the phone about the project. I said, yeah, we'll Skype tonight, whatever, and I said goodbye to you.
Right.
And so I decided I was going to go out and make something for lunch. And I went out to the stove, turned the stove on. I was going to make some eggs. And there's a salt pepper shaker sitting on the stove along with some other spices. And I'm just standing there waiting for the pan to get hot, and the salt shaker moved like an inch on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, the wind, something, or the heat, and I felt the stove. It wasn't hot. There was really nothing that could have explained why it moved.
Right.
So out loud, I jokingly said, okay, just to make me know I'm not crazy, will you please do that again?
Right.
And right on command, it moved another inch, just like the first time. So now I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. So I called my roommate out. I said, hey, come out here a minute. I want you to see something.
Right.
And sure enough, my roommate came out, and I asked the object to move again. Mm-hmm. And right on command, it moved again. My roommate just threw arms up and said, I'm done. I don't want to see this. This is scary. I'm nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I just thanked it. I said, thank you for doing that so someone else saw this. But any other time, my roomie would not acknowledge these things. Stuff would happen, but it was always a reason for it.
So what do you think it is? Because, as I said, other than like a few Graceland incidences or in Memphis itself, I've never really had anything happen. And yet, the minute you and I became connected, all of a sudden now, I mean, is it you? Are you doing it? Are you dragging it in?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're. I don't know. I never have figured it out. Because
friends, we have stuff all the time. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about our Gettysburg story. That happened to me.
I wrote that down in case we wanted to.
The Gettysburg story is really amazing. Yeah. We live about an hour or so away from Gettysburg now, or an hour. But we used to live just like 15 minutes from there.
Yeah, about 20 minutes or so.
So one night we went down to Gettysburg, and it was sunset, and we went in and we went to the Devil's Den. Now, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Civil War history, the Devil's Den is where military personnel from, I believe, the Confederate soldier side got up into this rock formation and shot down and devastated a lot of Union soldiers, and there was a lot of deaths there. They couldn't get him. He was a sniper, and they couldn't get at him in this rock formation. So it was a lot of death that happened there. The minute we pulled in, and I got out of the car, and I had full intentions of going up to the Devil's Den. There's a trail that goes up there. My stomach felt weird.
All of us. Mm-hmm. We all did.
Now, we had a couple friends, and a couple friends' teenage kids were with us, and our hairs were standing up on our arms. And this freaked me out because I'm not used to these kind of things, and it didn't feel positive at all. So I didn't want to go. I said, no, I'm good. I'm good right here. I don't need to go and be involved in no booga-booga stuff. And the guys, the grown men, wanted to go, and the kids did not. The teenagers decided to sit back with me. And so Jim and Dan took off and went up the trail. Now, there was like two trails. One was like a paved trail that you could walk up, and the other was a rocky trail you could walk up. And the guys were walking up the rocky trail. A couple was coming down from that area on the paved trail, like they had just been up there and they were leaving. And then out of nowhere comes an individual down the middle. And I thought to myself, it's starting to get really dark now, so you can't see real good. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't recall there being a trail right there. And this individual appeared to be young just by his size and just the way he carried himself. He didn't seem to be an older individual. Skinny, real tall. It was dark. He looked like he was dressed all in black and like he had a black hoodie on with the hood pulled up over his head. Okay. So you couldn't see his face. And he come down very easily down this path, I assumed.
Almost floated gracefully down. He was coming right towards Jim and I.
Yeah, and so when he passed you guys...
Well, actually, he didn't pass me. He was coming towards us.
Oh, okay.
And I just made the comment, because all the talk going there was about ghosts.
Yeah.
So I jokingly out loud said, hey, look, there comes a ghost right now.
Right.
And then I got in a very monotone voice back, you don't want to go up there.
Oh, my.
And I said, why? What's up there? And once again, you don't want to go up there.
Oh, my.
And then I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so
Jim and I proceeded, and then...
I didn't really see that conversation. It was too dark for me to tell you were talking to him. But he come down. We're watching him because we're just standing there watching you and everything going on. And as he come down to the bottom, he kind of walked about 20, 30 yards to my right. And as he was walking away, he suddenly turned around and was facing us and just stood there in the dark. And so he's facing us. Well, now I'm starting to get kind of concerned because I have these two kids and I'm by myself and you guys are up there and he's just standing there in the dark staring at us, supposedly staring at us. Even though you can't see his face, that's kind of what it perceives like he's doing.
You couldn't. I couldn't tell you what color he was, what if he had a beard or mustache or anything.
So then out of nowhere, as I'm starting to get nervous, he lets out a blood-curdling, someone just slit my throat scream. Well, maybe you can't scream while you have your
we heard it. We heard it up there where we were.
It was like, scream, just so loud. It echoed in the valley. And me and the kids jumped and practically screamed ourselves. And then he ran off into the woods.
And you said you could hear no footsteps when he was running.
Well, I don't remember hearing. And me and the kids both were trying to decipher that later. I said, he's standing on wet pavement. It had rained earlier that day. Did you see his feet? Did his feet make a sound leaving? No, nobody could remember.
And for those who think this was just a practical joker,
because that's what you think.
Well, here's what you got to keep in mind. Number one, the park is closed. We were actually in there illegally and didn't know it.
Yeah, they had the gates open.
Yeah, and number two, there's nowhere else to go other than that parking lot. And then you go into a wooded area or a field. where there's nobody to pick a person up.
He ran off into nowhere, into the woods.
So the idea of someone, teenager, trying to pull, it wouldn't it be a very good prank? How fun would that be?
He'd have to have a car like on the other side of the mountain. Or because I don't know how he could have run out of them woods and gotten out to a car anywhere.
But here's the clincher of the story, and the best part of the story is when we got home that night. Jim drove. He dropped you and I off, and you and I are getting ready for bed. And the phone rings. It's Jim. And Jim's son, Josh, was one of those teenagers that was with us. Josh is a real historical guy. He likes to know the story behind everything.
Right.
He looked up the Devil's Den at Gettysburg to find out the history of it. And sure enough, for the last 100 years or whatever, there's been a character or a human form that occasionally warns people not to go up the hill.
Right, right.
So there you go.
So
and we didn't know any of this stuff.
These things don't happen to me.
Right.
This only happens since you came in my life.
Well, thank you. Hey, I told you when you get me, you get a lot of personalities.
Oh, I guess so. You've got some friends that tag along. It's very bizarre, I gotta say.
You know, there's one very special story I got to share. And I mentioned this in the earlier podcast, the first one about the ghosts, that I had a personal Elvis and my dad kind of story that went together.
Right. Yeah.
So you ready for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Elvis fans, you guys all know that when you turn on the radio, unless you're listening to Blue Suede Connection, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if you listen to your average oldies radio station, you're going to hear Hound Dog, you're going to hear Burning Love, you're going to hear Suspicious Minds.
Right.
There's some songs of Elvis that are not as well heard on air as others, so keep that in mind. Okay, my dad, he was not necessarily in my category or our category as an Elvis fan, but he did love Elvis a lot.
Right.
And he used to comb his hair like him, and of course, Dad was of that generation. And occasionally him and I would watch Elvis movies together. And I remember one night we watched the movie Loving You.
Right.
It was on NBC, and Dad made the comment, you know, that's my favorite Elvis song. He said, if I had to pick my favorite Elvis song, it's Loving You.
Right.
And I always remembered that, so that song was always special to me. So something else that was very special to my dad was the eastern shore of Maryland, that we call Ocean City. And his game plan was to retire completely and sell the house there in Hagerstown, Maryland, and move to Ocean City, to the shore.
Right.
That was his dream, his goal, his plan. Well, Dad didn't make it long enough to do that.
Yeah, it's sad.
So Ocean City always held a special place with me and still does, and it was his place. So as I got older in life, I decided I was going to move to Ocean City, kind of do Dad's dream.
Oh, really?
And pursue a radio career at the beach. We all know that story. So I got down there, and I got a job before I got into radio down there. I, of course, had to make money, so I got a job in management with Walmart. And we were building a store. The store was not yet active, but we were putting the final touches on it.
Right.
Now, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're working overnights. I'm in this area of the store putting peg hooks in, and I felt something brush across my neck. And then I heard someone say, Danny. Now, nobody in my adult life, except for some close personal friends and a few family members, call me Danny. That's something my parents called me, like I said, are people who know me very, very well. I knew nobody in that store except the associates that I just met that week, getting to know that were going to work with me.
Right.
So I thought, that's strange. And I said, yeah. I just yelled out loud, yeah, and nobody answered. I thought, that's very strange.
Oh, wow. So
once again, I go over, I'm on my knees putting peg hooks in, and I hear, Danny. I thought, this is really strange. So I got up, and I walked down to the end of the aisle, looked up. The only person I saw was 100 feet away, and his name was Bob. He was putting potato chips in or something. I don't remember. I said, Bob, did you call me? He said, no. I said, did you hear someone yell my name? He said, no. So then I went back over. I thought, this is the strangest thing. And I got on my knees, back to my peg hooks. And then something touched me again on my neck. And then as soon as that happened, Loving You started playing on the speakers on Walmart radio. Oh, wow. So I just kind of put my head down. I said, hey, Dad, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah,
I'm glad you know I'm here.
Wow.
So was it him or was that a coincidence? You guys figure that one out.
I don't know, man. We have a ghost in our house, too.
Yeah, I wrote that down on my notes. We got to talk about our own personal house. Things happen here occasionally that are hard to explain.
But thanks to the medium, she kind of thinks it's your dad.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel better because we didn't know what was doing what, at first we had, someone starting our coffee.
Yeah, coffee. And it still does occasionally. So I unplug it now. so it doesn't happen. And it would happen at weird times. It could happen at 7 o'clock in the morning. It could happen at 10 o'clock at night. It would just come on when Dad wanted his coffee.
I know, but ironically,
right?
we do have coffee about those times.
Yes. You never know.
Maybe they knew our time schedule.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
But I think the weirdest thing is the little shiny objects that you find. I find them once in a while, but you are
dimes.
Like, yes.
Yeah. Everywhere I go in the house, there's dimes. Well, not always, though. It'll go weeks and weeks, and it won't happen. And then all of a sudden, I'll sit down to use the restroom, look down between my feet, and there's a dime.
Right.
And then I'll sit down at the couch, on my side of the couch, look over on my right there on my armrest, and there's a dime. You
found them in cars? You have found
They've been in my car. They've been in the restroom. They've been in the laundry room.
At the doorstep?
In the dishwasher. Well, in the washer, which, you think, it could fall out of a pocket.
No, I could say it was coincidental if it was quarters and nickels and stuff. But it's
random
always
coins. It's always dimes.
Yeah, it's weird.
And it'll go for a long time happening, and then all of a sudden not.
Right.
Just stop.
But I don't know if there's significance with dimes. Does that mean something? Or
yes. As a matter of fact, there is a story or a meaning. According to Google, the spiritual meaning of finding dimes goes back to the value of the dime.
Okay.
The number 10 is symbolic of the circle. This can be interpreted as events coming full circle.
Okay.
The dime can also represent a unity or completion of a task. Historically, finding money has represented the presence of a loved one.
Okay, so it could be any of those three, huh?
So that totally goes with your dad.
Yeah.
Because maybe he thinks you've come full circle. You always say that he would have approved of me.
He would have loved you to death, absolutely.
So it seems to...
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And one more thing, we talk about our house being haunted. Weird things. I don't know. Are jokes practical? Are ghosts practical jokers?
Yes, I've heard that.
They must be, because recently I had went to the grocery store and got a couple containers of tomato sauce, and we had them for dinner. One of them for dinner one night, and we had a little bit of sauce left over, but not a whole lot. And you and I were talking about dinner, and we decided we were going to get the sausage out of the freezer and add that extra can of sauce that we had to the old and make spaghetti sauce again.
Right.
So, and I checked and looked, and I said, yeah, we still have an extra container here of sauce. The next day, I'm upstairs in the office or whatever I'm doing, and you went down to make the sauce. And you hollered up, honey, where's that extra can of sauce that you said was here? Right. I said, it's right in the front. You can't miss it. As soon as you open the cupboard, it's there. And you said, well, you're going to have to come down here and show me because it's not here.
It's not obvious.
No, I know as a fact, without any doubt, the day you and I were talking about that, you were on the phone with me, and I opened the cupboard, and there it was. It was the previous day. It was there looking at me.
Yeah.
And I knew what I bought when I went to the store. So how this sauce totally left this house, I'll never know. Now, you and I recently started selling T-shirts with Blue Suede Connection on to our listeners.
Right.
And they gave us a hat as a sample, for what they could put on hats.
Right.
I loved my Blue Suede Connection hat. It went with me everywhere we went. But it never came off my head when we went out into the world. And when I brought it home, I generally would hang it on my little hat rack down there inside the door.
Right.
I love my Blue Suede Connection hat. Did I tell you that?
You have, yes.
Out of nowhere, my Blue Suede Connection hat has left the building. It is nowhere here to be found. I have looked up and down, under beds, everywhere. It is missing.
Now you realize that the listeners are thinking, did you look behind the washer and dryer?
Yes, I did.
That's always where everything goes.
Yes, I did. I won't even get into the black and white sweatpants that I also almost loved as much as the Blue Suede Connection hat. They have also disappeared. And other pieces of clothing of mine, for some reason,
that's funny,
just hide from me in this house. Is it a practical joking ghost? I don't know, but if he is,
he has a semi-sense of humor, just not one you appreciate.
I want my Blue Suede Connection hat back.
So listen, folks, you're listening to Blue Suede Lounge, and this is our chat session we get to have after our Blue Suede Connection show. We love to hear from you, so if you have a ghost story or any kind of story you'd like to share with us in regards to what we're talking about today, you can come on over to our website at blue-suede-connection.blogspot.com. You'll see a blog there concerning this and also a podcast link. Or you're welcome to comment right there in the podcast link.
Yeah, and we can share. We'll share their story on a future podcast, right? We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure we'll do more of these. We we live our life around haunted events. It seems like we live in the most haunted place of the world here in Winchester, Virginia. The whole town is haunted, so they tell us. We haven't had an experience out and about or anything, but
we've experienced. I've felt like
well, the one Brewbakers downtown, they claim to have a haunted ghost there that visits quite often. Dan says he feels some kind of energy.
I don't want people to think I'm a psychic or anything like that, or what do you call those people? I'm
crazy
not,
person.
But I do have a sensitive side that feels things. And the real short story, once again, you and I were going to our winery in another part of Virginia a while back, and I was wondering at that point, do I still have that touch? Can I still feel things? And I question myself all the time. And you and I were driving through this small town. We just kind of get off.
Oh, I know where
you're
going. I was wondering where you're going with this.
We were going a different direction or something, and we came to a stop sign. And once again, I got that little chill. I got that little feeling. Oh shoot, something's going on around here. I feel something here. Something happened here. And I told you out loud. I said, "There's something weird going on that probably isn't that stone building over there." Mm-hmm. That stone building was a school, I think. So you and I drive a couple more blocks, and I decided to look up this town and found out that sure enough, that building we saw was at one time a Civil War hospital and was used to amputate body parts and all kinds of things, and lots of death in there, and supposedly it's haunted. And we found out that the town itself was haunted. So there you go.
So this is our life, man. Yeah. We live it, and we thought it so interesting to share some Memphis and Graceland stories. So if you have a place that you've visited in Memphis that you have a good story at, we'd love to hear that too.
Or anywhere in the world, tell us about it. We want to hear it.
And don't forget, this is the Blue Suede Lounge, which is the takeoff from our Blue Suede Connection show. And that plays now on about 41 stations in 6 countries.
Yeah, we're getting close to 50 because we're in talks with other stations. So I think it's safe to say nearly 50 stations.
Exactly. So most importantly, join us for the show. 2 hours of Elvis and fun and lots of laughs, folks. And thank you once again for joining the Blue Suede Lounge. We love you.
Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And hit that notification bell.
We are your Blue Suede Connection.